Hi everyone, thanks for joining and welcome back to Wall Street Silver. Joining us back today is our good friend Mario from the Moneko64 YouTube channel. Welcome back, Mario.
Thank you, and thank you for having me back.
Yeah,
We
of course.
always will have you back, Mario. You're one of our favorites. But hey, you're based in London, and we talk about metals here, but we're gonna mention one of the metals that's kind of linked to silver today, and that is the zinc market. Silver is quite often linked with lead and zinc. They're mined together. And something weird is going on in the zinc market, right? The London Metals Exchange might be running out of zinc. And I wanted to talk about this. Now you follow this market to some extent, don't you, Mario?
A little bit, but the other thing I heard late last year, I was reading an article that was talking about 2023, and one of the things people in the LME and this base metal market were saying was that not just zinc, but a lot of the other metals in the LME, they're going to have trouble in 2023 because the warehouse stocks are getting very low. So I don't think it's just zinc.
Yeah, it's also copper.
Yeah.
What other metals do they cover it?
They do all the base metals on the LME.
Tin, aluminum,
aluminum, nickel, all the copper.
So it's not just zinc. All of them are at sort of record lows. Now, is this partially because of Russia, and Russia's not exporting as much, and that used to be a major supply source for the LME?
Yeah, Russia, they have a lot of they export a lot of base metals. Russia's kind of like the bread basket for commodities in the world. So the supply chain has been disrupted. And I think the LME is actually owned by a company in Hong Kong. So it's linked to the Chinese as well. And we had last year the nickel shortage. And the other thing as well, when we had the nickel shortage last year, they canceled trades, and that hurt the credibility of the LME a lot. So that's the other reason why I think maybe LME is having trouble, because people don't want to deal there anymore. And
is there any alternative though? What's the alternative to dealing with the LME?
Well, I think now there's also a Shanghai commodity exchange. In China, they're building up. And there isn't a huge alternative right now, but I think people can always adapt. And the other thing that's happening, the 180 turned by the Chinese government with their zero COVID policy. That means that, a lot of people are seeing the Chinese economy pick up again. And the Chinese, they always, demand for base metals and commodities are going to go higher. So that's something that to keep an eye. And the other thing as well, I think, is to do with the monetary system. And I don't know if you've had Rafi Faber on, but he talks about how when fiat currencies are losing a lot of value, a lot of people who produce real things, they try to pare back the supply of it because they know it's going to become worth less and less. And I think that's what's happening to base metals. And I think as well, we've seen a correction in the price of commodities in the last 9 months or so, but energy prices are still really high. So the cost of producing these base metals is still pretty high, and maybe there hasn't been as much investment in mining, and maybe that's the other thing that's impacting it.
Yeah, to sort of stick with that European theme, our own central bank, the Fed, they're talking about they're slowing down on their increases, right? But the European Central Bank seems to be dialing up their increases. And I'm wondering, my speculation is that's going to cause DXY, the dollar index, to decline, as if the Eurozone is going with much more steeper interest rate increases while we're getting ready to pause on ours. Would that not incline that the dollar relative to the euro will get weaker? And that would imply also gold and silver go up in that scenario, correct?
Yeah, and the Fed started hiking way before the ECB, and the ECB was behind the curve, and they had to. And don't forget, their rates were negative up until sometime last year, and
Yeah.
I'm not sure where they are right now, just above
We're just
2%.
barely positive, yeah.
So, and like CPI in Germany is running at 10%, which is ridiculous to have rates at 2. So I think they're going to do another 2 of 50 basis points and probably pause. I don't think they're really that hawkish. They're having to do this. But yes, the euros turned around quite sharply. We were below parity a few months ago, and now we're almost back to like 110. So yeah, and the dollar index, I had always thought that the dollar index had topped a long-term top in January 2017, around 103.82. But then last year we blew through that, and now it's come back below, and it's like,
yeah, we could break 100 again.
yeah, I mean, and we've gone below the top from
this is the weekly chart of the DXY, just so if anyone's wondering.
Yeah, but if you go back a bit further, and so we can see going back like 5-10 years, I think what's happened here, because I've done quite a bit of research on the dollar index going back to the 70s, and usually there's like a 7 to 9 year cycle, and that top in 2017 there at 103.82, that was 9 years after the bottom in 2008. So what I think, looking back in retrospect, like in a few years' time, I think people are going to say that the spike we had last year was like a bull trap, and the fact that we've gone back below that top, it's pretty negative for the dollar, but I don't think it's going to collapse. We could go back to 90 and it would still be pretty just at the bottom of the range. It still be relatively strong compared to 08 when it went to 70. But at the same time, yeah, it will help gold. But in the long term, the dollar index started at 100 in 1973 when gold was $85. And now we're almost at 100 and gold is at $1,900. So I would stick to gold and silver. Yes, it does help gold in the short term, but in the long term, I think all fiat currencies are going down against gold.
And let's switch to gold in Africa, because I know that this is something you mentioned to us. Burkina Faso, explain what's going on, because this is a new story to me. They order French troops to leave the country, and how does this affect gold prices? Why is this important?
Well, I'm looking more at a bigger picture thing, in like the BRICS nations, and the influence of Russia and China, whatever you may think of those two countries in Africa and also Asia. And it's interesting that Burkina Faso has asked the French to withdraw, and the French have had a historic presence in those countries because they colonized it, and now they want them to leave. And if you look at the story, it looks like they're getting help from the Russians.
Interesting.
There's a lot of Chinese investment in Africa as well. And I didn't know much about Burkina Faso. So when I saw the story pop out today, I checked it out. And Burkina Faso's main sector of their economy, main export, is gold. So I'm not saying it's going to affect the gold price, but it just goes to show that these African countries and also the BRICS plus, I think Zoltan calls it BRICS expansion. They're looking to align themselves more with Russia and China, and yes, and that takes away from a demand from the dollar, because we're seeing that a lot of these countries want to deal in their own currencies. We saw the Saudi minister at Davos saying that yes, they'll deal with the Americans in dollars, but they want to be able to deal in all currencies.
Yeah,
and I think the BRICS, if we do get a BRICS reserve currency, it will have to have some gold backing, and I think that's why there was so much gold buying last year. It was the most gold buying since 1967. It was mostly by what they call the BRICS or Global South countries. So that's why I think it's significant, that story.
Yeah.
And if you look
it seems like the BRICS nations are really dominating commodities. If they ever get their act together, all those core BRICS nations, and if they were able to include Saudi Arabia, Iran, and some other key oil producers as part of their core group, it's and I'm wondering how a currency would actually function between them. I mean, I've even heard speculation that they're talking about a stable coin linked to gold, which is kind of an interesting, just for trade settlement,
denominated by gold.
Yeah. So what would happen, and if Burkina Faso had a surplus with Russia for a year, Russia would send some gold to Burkina Faso and vice versa. That's how it used to be during the Bretton Woods, when the US dollar was the
they would keep track of any transactions with the stable coin, and I guess settle up once a quarter or once a year in physical or something like that.
And we were talking about Burkina Faso, and people in the mainstream or people that don't follow what we do, they'll say, "Oh, Burkina Faso, that's what the hell is that country?" But what we need to focus on is it's a marginal country. It's got, I think, 23 million people. But if you add up all these little countries and with China, India, and Russia, Brazil, and it becomes it's like a snowball effect. So I think it's important for us to follow that. Doesn't mean the dollar is going to disappear. It's just going to there's going to be less demand for it, less demand for the dollar. The less valuable it is, just like anything.
Gotcha. I know China too. They do like a 99-year lease too. With their Silk Road and their BRICS, like they try to give money or a loan to a country, an African country, and then they'll just take a 99-year lease on their port. So that's pretty huge too.
Yeah, I saw one where one of those hydroelectric dams that China built for one of those countries is all cracking and messed up now, but they're still demanding payment for all the debt on it. Whereas the hydroelectric dam is pretty much about to become worthless and could come out.
That sucks.
Yeah. So the Silk Road is not all silky. Here's one more topic I wanted to cover with you, because France is having a lot of protest right now, and the story is that France is trying to raise the pension age from 62 to 64. And the French just love to protest, right? I think they just do it to go hang out with their friends and go for an urban hike or something. But what do you think about this? I mean, it doesn't seem that unreasonable. 64, like in America, Social Security is at 67. So I guess we're not that. It used to be 65, and they've gradually increased it to 67 now for my generation.
Yes, same here in England or the UK. When I started working here, it was 65, but I'm going to have to wait until I'm 67 to get the state pension. And I guess there's two options for Macron, either to raise the age or cut the pension. So, and the reason this is happening, of course, is because every country in the West has too much debt and too much deficit spending, and the economies are slowing down, and the government is too big, and the demographics with the demographics, it means that there's I think like in the 50s and 60s there was 7 people working for every pensioner, and now it's something like 3 people or even 2. So that's why they're doing that, and a lot of people don't understand that, and people always want something for nothing. And the French, they've been good at rioting and protesting since the 1790s.
Well, here look, there have been some casualties in these protests. Look at this guy, a photographer. He got nailed in the crotch, and they had to amputate. Poor guy. You just at a protest and the police nail you, and the guy lost lost
Yeah.
his key valuables in the process.
That's crazy.
Our condolences to the victim, but
Yeah, one thing it shows though is that the French people are still, they're at least rising up and trying to do
I heard there was like 2 million of them
yeah.
on the
and some
streets,
of
bro.
them
It was crazy.
the protest
You
scene.
remember the yellow vests, I mean, in 2017, 2018.
Well, they have a better tradition of protesting in France than pretty much anywhere. I remember some of the farmers, when they start protesting, they'll get out their manure spreading trucks and they'll go to the politician's house and they'll start shooting manure into the guy's windows and stuff like that.
That's great.
And I mean, if you pulled that in America, you'd probably go to, they'd treat
Jail
like,
for sure.
Yeah, they'd be.
Oh yeah.
But in France, it's like expected, I guess. That's I respect it. I respect a good protest.
Me too.
There was one crazy photo on the streetcar. There was a streetcar. Hold on, let me find it real quick. The French have truly mastered the art of protesting. Look at what this guy has built. While they're walking down the streets protesting, they have the streetcar rail lines already built in there. So while they're walking, this guy built a grill that you can just throw on the streetcar lines. And isn't that hilarious?
It's very entrepreneurial.
Yeah, and look, this is even a video of it in action. Hold on, let me see if I can get it to roll here. So while they're protesting, they can just cook for their fellow protesters and go down the streets. I mean, that's like these guys are professional level protesters, right?
Yeah, everyone's not going hungry. That's beautiful.
Yeah, it's a party. It's fun stuff. So, Mario, thanks for joining us. We love having you on. We love getting your take on things. We'll do it again in a few months, man.
Great, and maybe I'll have you guys on as well on my channel.
Yeah, we need to come back and talk with you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.